So once again, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. It's the Buddha Center. It's the temple. Off we go. Let's start like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. So wherever you are behind your avatar, please get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, the idea is focus on the sound of the bell. Work on that deep listening. Get ready to absorb some Dharma. You're going to get distracted. It happens to all of us. When it does, just gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. So there'll be a short meditation, then I'll do the 3 recitations, and then on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. So once again, hello, and hard to believe it's nearing the end of August here. This year is kind of going by pretty fast in some ways and really slow in others. But today we're going to talk about modifying our behavior, which is a big part of a Buddhist practice. We talk a lot in here. We say it a lot. Change your actions, change your thoughts. Change your thoughts, change your actions. And we talk a lot about intent. That word comes up a lot. Well, most people spend a pretty limited time investigating the intent that they bring to their own thoughts and actions. It's interesting, we will spend more time looking at the intent of others or trying to figure it out than sometimes we look at our own intent. Well, college. This seems to be a really common place that investigations into the meaning of life arise. More properly, we might call it the meaning of the intent toward life. So when folks are in college, this tends to manifest. But is more likely to occur in someone that's in the middle of a major personal crisis, like an injury or a disease or a loss. They'll start looking into intent. But rarely does anyone engage in investigating the how and why of their lives when everything's going well, right? Don't want to mess with a good thing. Or maybe it just seems like it's going well, and you still don't want to mess with a good thing. Well, those who choose to engage a Buddhist practice quickly come to the realization that investigation into intent is very important. This sort of investigation is at the core of the behavioral modification that must occur to achieve a mature practice, one that benefits both ourselves and our society. The initial step on this path is achieving an understanding of just how do we perceive the world. It is this perception of our own experiences that determines what we find meaningful and what actions that we're going to engage in. It is a journey to discover the behaviors that will help to preserve those things we find meaningful in our lives. From this investigation, we develop a worldview, and as practice matures, our thoughts and our words and our actions will reflect how we experience our interconnection and interdependence with all this other phenomena that's going on around us. If we see the world as dark, dangerous, and nasty, then our behavior will betray that view. If we think that through our efforts we can make the world a more harmonious, healthful, and happy place, then our behavior will exhibit our intent to work hard to realize that type of world. So it's up to us. If we see it as dark, we're going to act like it's dark. If we see it as light, we're going to act like it's light. We develop our worldview. What is our perspective and interpretation of the world around us from our experiences, both of nature and of nurture. Worldview is the beliefs that we hold about how life and the universe operates with us as an integral component. Worldview is not something that gets handed down genetically. It doesn't get imprinted on our brain. It is through experience and our effort that we learn more about the realities of our world, and that helps us develop that worldview. It is an aspect of personal character, and it's defined by how we understand and realize our roles as social selves. One intent for Buddhist practice is to make us maximally mindful of how we view the world and broadly aware of how we might best use our time and our skills and gifts so we can promote human flourishing and the alleviation of suffering. Intent, as thought and action, is the interconnection of three key elements of our experiences. Three elements, if you will, of our personal intention that we've got to work to refine as we engage in our Buddhist practice. So the first thing, our understanding of our world and the meaning we derive from it. So again, how we understand the world, and as a result, the meaning that we derive from that understanding. So it's our conscious perception of our world and the aspects of our experience that resonate deeply with our very being. Or maybe we would call it meaning, or we might call it values. Ethics, maybe, if you will. So this is something that we have to work on as part of our intent, right, as a way to modify our behavior. The second thing is our internalized behavioral dispositions, or our unconscious habitual reactivities. These are behaviors that kind of permeate our thoughts and our words and our actions. We talk about habitual reactivities quite a bit. These are the things that we do over and over because we're comfortable with them. It's either in the way we act, the way we speak, the way we think. It can all arise from these habitual reactivities. The idea is to see the ones that are unwholesome and rid ourselves of them. But these habitual reactivities, they get in pretty deep. And then the third one is the causal world that we are part and parcel of. Right? We are part of the causal world. What we do matters. So this is where intent actually manifests. This is where it makes that leap from just a mental conception to action, or it actually becomes part of our behavior. We have to seek, as travelers on the noble path, to consciously refine elements 1 and 3. Right? We can consciously do this. We can consciously begin to work on our understanding of the world. We can consciously think about that meaning that we derive from it. What is its value? And we can consciously understand better how we're part and parcel of the causal world, and we can see how our intent manifests and what our behavior is. We can consciously look at those things. We can do it through deliberate effort. And in that process, then, we begin to naturally refine element 2, those internal behavioral dispositions, those habitual reactivities. Over time of believing in a particular way and behaving in particular ways, we rewire the body-mind to store those beliefs and behaviors in our unconscious mind. They become kind of like muscle memory or mental memory, if you want to call it that. In Buddhism, the unconscious mind is sometimes called the storehouse consciousness. That kind of gets the point across that this is where we put stuff. So this frees up the conscious mind to focus on those other things, right? The new things that come along, the more maybe complicated things, or something that you've done for the first time. But what we really would like to focus on in our Buddhist practice at this point is more paths to the promotion of human flourishing and the alleviation of suffering. So here, the conscious mind, it's kind of the easy part, in a way. This is where we are mindful, more or less, even though we are not nearly as aware maybe as we think we are. The unconscious mind, however, a little trickier. It is that deeper internalization of what was at one time conscious that has now been transformed into an unconscious habit. Our job as Buddhists interested in serious self-cultivation is to make sure that we practice in a way to internalize the best, the most wholesome habits and dispositions that we possibly can. While it is inaccurate to say that any person, no matter how skilled they are in practice or how much experience they have, can remain consciously aware of their intentions and dispositions all of the time, we can ensure that the conscious aspects of ourselves are preferred so that they replace unwholesome habitual reactivities and nurture wholesome ones. That's a big, long sentence that basically says it doesn't matter how skilled or how much experience you have, we still have to remain consciously aware of our intent and our dispositions all the time. Even those ones that go into the storehouse consciousness, when we use them, when they arise, we still got to look at them. Even if it's just a moment to go, well, that's still working good. Because we always got to work toward getting rid of the unwholesome and replacing it with wholesome. This natural process of storing previously conscious thoughts, words, and actions in the storehouse consciousness is believed to maybe originally been a means of ensuring human survival. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors had to learn lessons and then internalize them really quickly in order to survive in their dangerous and seemingly unpredictable environment. Today, in a world where our life expectancies are much longer, 78 years now as opposed to 28 years, and occupations and opportunities are more numerous than any other time in history, we need more checks and balances on our body minds. And this is so that unwholesome or unhealthy behaviors do not find their way into that storehouse consciousness. They don't become that habitual reactivity. Buddhist practice gives us an interesting opportunity. It allows us to remap the self. It allows us to continually update ourselves so that the best behaviors are internalized. And when unwholesome or unhealthy behaviors make their way into our conscious mind, we have an effective means of identifying them and then saying, whoa, I'm going to replace this with something a little more healthy, a little more positive. We do this, and by the way, this is really the only way we know of to do this, is by remaining engaged in practice ourselves. Not watching other people practice and going, well, that's good enough. We have to do the practice, our responsibility. We cannot take days off from practice, because if we do, we open the door for some unwanted habitual reactivities to begin to creep back into our unconscious mind, creeping back into that storehouse consciousness. And no one, not a priest, not a teacher, not a God, can practice for us. If we want to change our behavior, we have to do it ourselves. If we want transformation into something more wholesome, we've got to do it ourselves. If we want those unwholesome habitual reactivities to be gone, we've got to usher them out the door. Nobody else can do that for us. Folks can tell us how to modify our behavior. They can make a chart for us. They can write it down for us. They can repeat it so much that we memorize it. But in the end, we are the only individual that can take action for ourselves.